Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our next Cyber Talk series at Swiss Cyber Institute. We are pleased to have you here, the webinar, which is hosted by Cisco, and today's topic is Zero Trust Concept Demystified. Today, we have a special guest who will present you this webinar, who is the Roman Stefanov. Roman is the cybersecurity sales lead of Cisco Switzerland, and today we will look at the topic a little bit closer. The zero trust and zero trust concept is not a product. We need to do know this, and we will see how to achieve the intelligent zero trust architecture. Roman is going to present you the presentation next 45-50 minutes, and later on we will be very happy to answer all the questions you might have. Therefore, please use Q&A button or chat button here on the bottom of your window, and we will get your questions and we will answer all of them at the end of the session. Thank you very much for being with us. And my name is Samir Aliyev, founder of Swiss Cyber Institute, and we are going to help you here with the question and answers here at the end of the session. Roman, stage is yours. Thank you very much for being here, and it's our pleasure to host you here and listen to you and learn more about zero trust and your concept at Cisco. Stage is yours.
Hey, thank you very much, Samir, for the introduction. It's not me alone. So obviously I have colleagues with myself in the room. We wanted actually to stream that over a big screen. We failed a little bit, technical hurdles between integration of Cisco video systems and Zoom. I hope we'll solve that in the future. We can make maybe next time another webinar around that topic. It's also a big topic for Cisco, how to simplify work, right? Because we've learned everybody's working from home, but I'll just jump in afterwards into that topic straight in. So with me is Hans Mattis. He's sitting next to me. You just might see his shoulder. He's getting into the screen. That's the classical way. And on the other side, Hans is our technical architect in Cisco Security Switzerland. And we have Imke, who is helping us in organizing events from a marketing communication point of view, also in Switzerland. So hello to everybody. We'll jump straight into the topic, because I just also mentioned what changed in the last few years. I think we all know the boundaries are gone, right? We don't have classical security boundaries anymore. We have no boundaries between personal life, working life, between employers, employee. The things are gone. And I think we see a lot of trends, like businesses is competing as an ecosystem. What do we mean with that? It's especially needed because afterwards we're going to talk a little bit more into detail about zero trust, the concept in general. But I think it's important to understand that the business is a big web of connected companies, right? Suppliers, customers, delivery chains, supply chains, and so on and so forth. So if one thing is attacked or vulnerable, obviously the whole chain is. The multi-cloud world is also fact. There is no on-prem only or on cloud only. There's a combination of it, and we've all seen and learned that hybrid work is here to stay. So we see our employees being on the road, on the way. They want to connect to the applications. They want to do it with easiness. And this is obviously causing a lot of issues when you're looking into security. Zero trust is a concept which is, I think we see a lot of customers are embracing on this journey. Has also some misunderstandings in it. So we'll try to see how we as Cisco are looking at those points. But if zero trust is done well, I think we can succeed in being security resilient, because it brings us speed, it brings us also flexibility, and it gives us also for future readiness, because the attack vectors will definitely not go away or be small in the future. So what does zero trust mean? I think it's fair to say that it's not just a product, or it's a mindset, right? I think all these points, as you see here, it might be segmentation, it could be zero trust network access, or the endpoint. We see a lot of people talking about firewall, and definitely also identity. I think this is a path. And once you have a strategy, all of those points are correct, right? It's more how to put this strategy in a concept and how to get alignment also within a company to get on all these stages. We are looking into the foundation of zero trust, and indeed there are some pillars which are important, right? Identity is important. The devices has to be controlled and to be seen. Network and the total environment has to be considered. Application and their workloads needs to be finally mapped, segmented, and data finally has to be protected here. You see on a vertical side, on a horizontal side, you see that visibility is a foundational thing on the zero trust concept, and it's especially also analytics. Automation orchestration, obviously what I've said before, helps you to orchestrate all things which are realized or during the path seen. They need to be orchestrated and fast reacted on any attack, on any attacks. I'll come back to that a bit later on. So let's see what we look at Cisco as a holistical approach to these points. And I'll run you now through several of these steps as we see that from our glasses, right? These are the principles. What are zero trust principles? What it might be a strategy to think about, how to set it up. Obviously, there is a platform needed which can support this strategy, and capabilities are obviously also going to be needed. We will definitely not go into technology details and features today, so that's why it's gray out. We'll stay on the colored one. But if you have questions on a later stage, we'll show you how you can get in touch with us at the end. So let's go back to the first one, which are the principles. I think that's something everybody is aware here. Never assume trust. No matter where the connection request is coming from which device, from network, I think we are never sure who is behind it. That's a concept of zero trust, which is clear for everybody. Always verify means also continuous verification. So once verified, this doesn't mean that the next time the same verification doesn't have to happen. And enforce least privilege. Once you grant access to any application, you obviously only want to have the least privilege to this application to be sure that the people are doing that what they need to do, and that's it, right? Until you revoke any access to those applications. So now one step further from the principles to the strategy, was we've seen what is supporting this strategy from a principle point of view. I think it's not so easy now to cover all of those points, but embedded zero trust across the fabric of multi-environment IT is key. And here are coming now two, I think, issues, right? The first one is we see users. There is needed a user strategy, a device strategy, network, cloud, application, and for sure also data. And here the complication is also, it's not only on-prem, right? We are seeing old-fashioned ITs, but we also see a lot of new-fashioned ITs in cloud environment, and it's needed to have a holistic strategy on that one to be successful. The second issue here comes when we are talking to customers and we are discussing that, there's always this productivity against security. So we feel a fear that high security might impact the productivity of people, right? They don't want to have a lot of hustles. They don't want to have a lot of hurdles. So it's always this discussion, right? Yeah, and sure. I mean, it's easy to say that, but definitely there's a sweet spot, which is where where we want to frustrate attackers, and definitely not the users. So, but this needs a strategy, and I think we're going to talk about these use cases on the next few slides. But getting zero trust right is essential for the security resilience, and especially also to sustain unpredictable threats for the future. And that comes with that. We come to the requirements from the strategy. We go now a step lower. There's the platform. Right? What kind of platform requirements are here needed? And we see here, we simplify here, obviously, the topic also, but we see here 4 points which are really required. Establish trust. That's where we see users are accessing apps or devices on the network or whatever this application is. Then the next stage, enforced trust based on access, means we want to grant now the least privilege when the access is granted. And don't forget, I've mentioned also the continuously verification of those trusts. Is that changing? Is this disposal changing of this trust originally granted? And once it changes, comes the fourth step, right? How to react on these changes. And we'll go now into each of these points a little bit more into details from a use case perspective to see on Cisco security how we are looking at things. As said, we're not looking at the products. We just look now what the use cases is and how we can solve that. It's not only Cisco technologies sometimes, right? It can be different technologies playing together. Let's see what means establishing trust in a use case where a remote user is trying to access a cloud app from their own device. Own device means here the laptop on the right side, but it has its own phone also with it. So the user starts to authenticate. It means he's accessing the application, user is verified, device posture is checked. So we're gonna check also, hey, is this device where he's trying now to log in over the browser, is this device healthy? Means does he has everything activated? Is he up to date from a software point of view? If yes, the device trust is validated. We say yes, you gain access to this specific application in this session. So from a security point of view, we've been covering now several things, right? How do we enable security? So obviously MFA is a key. There might be different MFA options like push, like calls, SMS, biometrics can be used, variables anyhow, passwordless or tokens, and much more can be used here to grant this second option to prove that you are that what you're claiming to be. Then the device trust, and here we're talking again on the laptop. How risky is this device? Is it compliant? Does it has any compromises and all those things, right? Setting global adaptive policies is an important thing, right? What is allowed, which user is allowed to access which application, on which level, and so on. On the high productivity side, you know, we want to remove this friction of having long authentications, right? It has to be within seconds with at least pushes as possible. In this picture, we are showing like, hey, there's a duo component inside, which is our MFA solution. You are logging into an application. It says, hey, here you're trying to, are you the one trying to get into the application? And it doesn't even open up. It's just a pop-up who says, yes, I am it, and it pushes. And I'll come later on why it's that simple here, but we'll cover that later. So this is the simplest way to deploy in a SaaS environment, because the Duo solution itself is a SaaS, and it can help actually reduce all the tickets because it's a self-remediated, self-enrolled solution. So let's look at another use case, which I think is also here and it's going to be here for a long time, is the remote users trying to access a private application, which is sitting on our data center, but without VPN. So the user requires here a private app from a managed or unmanaged device. That can be both. And I'm talking here about a laptop, right? The own device, the handheld device, it's already proven it's your. User can directly access application using any browser like before. And the user gets only access to the application as before. He doesn't have to connect through a VPN. So on the security side, I don't want to go now in each individual stage here, but you know, you see the middle on the security side, on the left side, you see the middle. How do we do this? Obviously with RDP and SSH, which is internet facing. So we can have a proxy in between, which is then delivering the application to the outside world. And that's why we can access those. And there's a bring your own device functionality where you can also access all your application inside the company with own devices by doing a device posture assessment on the unmanaged devices. Again, it's frictionless. It can be delivered for any application using a browser. And it reduces also latency because it's pretty scalable and it doesn't add any latency from a VPS because you don't need to download any software to actually get first a VPN client up and running and then getting it up and running. Let's move to the fourth use case, which is, you remember, we've been talking about the four principles. Sorry, it was not the four concepts, four platforms, where the third one was continuous verification. And here we see a remote user who has access to an application, but now the behavior changes. So we see a user has on the first point, we see a user has already authenticated and is using the application now. He's fully in use, and now the firewall gets disabled. So what this means, the trust is lost. An app shall actually, the access shall be revoked. So the user is prompted to enable the firewall, and then, only then, he regains actually access to the application again. But let's go a little bit into detail because this is actually important. When you're looking at what happens here, I mean, it's in the background, it's a complicated, it's sharing information, right? Because the disposal of the device itself is changing. And we know that, as an example, deactivating firewall during a session is a known attack vector, right? So this is going to be alerted and shared. And in that case, we are revoking the access to this application. But contextual awareness can also be here used, like GeoIP or Wi-Fi fingerprint. That's something specific here because once we know that the user is always using the same application, as an example, with the same device on the same Wi-Fi environment, he can obviously be trusted, right? But once this changes as well, there might be a risky behavior behind this as well. So, you know, these are the things we are trying to use and bring into the context when we revoke authentication. On the productivity side, I think it's to say this session can be also extended for high trust environments, right? If he's now changing the Wi-Fi, yeah, might be that he's still high trusted, right? But for a low trust, we might be revoking the connection completely and say you have to activate first, in this case, in this specific case, the firewall, and then we'll give you again access to the application. It improves, by the way, also the IT efficiency because automatic access revocation and also enabling again to the application without any ticketing. Obviously, this helps definitely the IT supporting your zero trust environment and not being affected by lower productivity. So there is let's spin that further. This exactly use cases we've been doing before, right? In the case before, we've seen the access was revoked, then the firewall was activated again. But now in this case, we see this is not going to happen, right? So the access to the application is terminated, but now we obviously need an analyst getting into this chain of actions, and he needs to detect pretty fast what's going on because that's obviously an active breach. And the analyst needs to find the malware alert, which is alerted on the device, and the access is blocked. So what do we do now with the device? Maybe we can skip one further. If the breach is early notified, we can put this device now, obviously, because we have an endpoint detection remediation system running on the endpoint device, and this is sharing now the information with the analyst and saying, look, this device is now affected. Let's put it in a quarantine. Obviously, you cannot work anymore from that one, but the analyst can actually use all the forensic data which is on the device and start to work and remediate that immediately. So on the productivity side, I think it's very, very important to say that the device itself is affected, but the user is not. he can still log in from another device on the same application and proceed with the work. Okay, maybe if he's doing that 3-4 times in a row, might be that his access is also being revoked permanently for the future. But I think those are the important topics which are in the background happening, and especially sharing this context, sharing this information on the endpoints and the whole chain to be blocking that. It's important. So we've been now talking mainly around applications sitting on the device, in the cloud or in the data center. How do we access those? What is happening between granting access, continuous verification, and here also blocking those, and then using the analysts, the information to remediate actually the attack. So, but what is now happening when we are spinning further, and we're gonna go into the discussion point where, and this is going to Hans is taking over. I will move now a little bit his screen because he's going to show us the similar approach, but now on the network, how to authenticate and use all the data on the network.
Thank you, Roman. Yes, and all these functions, this protection, and these policies could be done by an enhanced MFA solution, which learns about all the characteristics, all the authentication, and integrates into the network and enforcement points. Now, when we look at trying to establish connection to a private network or private cloud-based application, we need to establish or integrate network access control for Ethernet-based wireless or also remote VPN access in a similar way to create the visibility to gather information about connected users and connected devices, and allow our zero trust policy to work on these characteristics and to allow very granular policies for this specific access. So we know the user, we know the device, but can we categorize the device somehow in order to create separate rules for OT devices and users, for example? So such an automation, that's a possibility to add applications and capabilities to an identity service engine, a radius-based platform which allows integration into multiple devices from multiple vendors and steer the trust and access to critical data based on centralized policies. It also allows to create the management of BYOD devices and establish connection to managed endpoints. We also want to unify the interface to manage guest networks and also contractor access. So this really helps to have a seamless experience for all the users accessing the network, independent whether they work from home, from the office, over wireless or connected Ethernet networks. We also simplify management and operations by profiling the end device to detect OT devices, type of device, and similar groups of devices. So these unified capabilities, and also to allow sharing this gathered information, that allows to create granular policies for network access control. So when we do it the traditional way, by separating the network into different VLAN segments, we can steer the connection from users and devices to specific VLANs and allow specific access. But the new way is also to have a more dynamic possibility to create or to use group tags like the scalable group tags or security group tags with trust-sec technology. Also to have dynamic capabilities of segmentation or micro-segmentation. So by adding these labels, we can create policy matrix in a graphical user interface with visibility of access rules, what groups or users have access to what specific resources or critical data. And we can change this matrix independent of IP addresses or version 4 or version 6 type of IP addresses very quickly, and also integrate different solutions with this technology. So putting together, grouping such users, departments, or resources allows us very simple access control rules and reduced work for the operators. This technology also allows to integrate data centers or cloud applications or cloud group tags in a simple way. Even more requirements for automation are in the data center. Data center requires micro-segmentation between applications and grouping of functions within these applications. So the first point there is to create visibility to discover applications, application dependencies, and also let the system learn about policies, whitelist policies or zero trust policies for the usual workday. So anomaly detection will be an important topic here. And if we are talking about applications, their dependencies and rules between applications and users, then we are talking about thousands of rules. So without automation, there is no possibility to cope with centralized policy management. So an integration with policy detection, policy management, policy simulation, and testing of policies before deployment. These are important points to secure the workloads. Workload security has capabilities to make dependencies between applications visible. Also to monitor traffic between the applications and to allow or to get the statistics of traffic between the segments, traffic between segments, and individual micro-segmentation for user groups. By combining all these functions and integrating with the network and with the user information we have for context information, we are able to let administrators and even application programmers know and review policies automatically proposed by the system and implemented as required over time. So only with all these capabilities, a data center, small or large data center, is able to have a dynamic micro-segmentation for zero trust policies integrated with the network and the user capabilities. Of course, all these points within the network, the data center and the user device needs to be integrated in one or the other way, not only to share context information, but also to send IOCs, incidents of compromise, and security alerts to a centralized point where automated remediation, automated detection, and also immediate enforcement is possible. Continuous verification is also important within the data center. There we integrate these policies and detection capabilities with vulnerability information of all the applications on hypervisors, on VMs, or even on bare metal. It also allows to manage the vulnerabilities and to easily integrate with enforcement points to protect applications from these vulnerabilities. All these capabilities play together to allow an end-to-end zero trust roadmap, kind of architecture involving multiple solutions, integrating all the capabilities and simplifying detection and protection from attackers. Roman, back to you.
Yeah, we've been talking about the capabilities, and actually we didn't want to go into finally the details, but it goes into the details, right? So I think I don't want to summarize now all the functional requirements from the capabilities itself, but I think I want to look into, I mean, we've been talking on what is needed. You see, it can be, you know, from a user point of view, we want to reduce complexity because everybody is afraid to add complexity, but we still realize it's not complex topic, right? And creating resilience into this environment is pretty important. And to get resilience, I want to go a step further and maybe show also from a user point of view now how things are running. We've discussed in the background, right? But I think passwords is prone, right, to mistakes and to hijacks. So we need to reduce them as much as possible. And this is done by leveraging biometrics on Apple Androids or Windows, like with fingerprinting, Face IDs. We all know that, right? So I think that's important to mention that this is a basic functionality, but passwordless is definitely something you should consider also for the future. It reduces, once you have single sign-on here, you can obviously also use that. And authenticate less often without sacrificing your privacy. I think it's also a very important point of view. So remember devices, and as mentioned before, also the fingerprinting, the Wi-Fi fingerprint. It means, what do I want to say here is, if you have a user and he's doing familiar things, the same application, the same device on the same network, on the same Wi-Fi, obviously you don't want to always authenticate him again, right? So he's good, passwordless, he's good to go. But what is he changing things? So he's now doing the same application, device, or network, but he's doing it on another Wi-Fi, or he's doing a strange behavior. Yeah, then obviously you're going to push and you're going to tell him, hey, listen, I want to have you verified again. Can you please put your face or your finger on it? And then if it's good, it's good to go, right? Then we know him again. And this is obviously done without location, data location storage, or any other information that you're collecting as a company, just to say. So, but yeah, users are prone for phishing attacks, right? There is this verified push. I'm just going to talk about this verified push again. So once we have standard app user, he's obviously normally good to go without having too much interferences with Authenticate himself. But what is it if it's a sensitive application or a sensitive administrative application to be used or their access? Yeah, then we want to have a little bit more details about these users. And then in this case, maybe passwordless is not enough, or any biometrics is not enough, right? Then we're going to push 3-digit, 4-digit, 5-digit, 6-digit verification code, where we want to have him putting into the mobile and then seeing if that's the person he's pretending to be. So these are the actually called verified pushes from our side. And yes, once he's verified, obviously we're going to learn that from him. But in that case, as we said in the beginning, we want to frustrate attackers and not the users, because we need to make sure that the usability is pretty easy. So we've just released Cisco guide of zero trust maturity. So we've been asking 5,000 plus IT and security practitioners around several topics. It's actually not the only topic, but we've identified what we've heard is mature zero trust implementation is twice likely to report indeed confidence from the management point of view about the project, about the program itself, but it's also obtaining the buy-in from peers. You know, once you're doing all the steps correct, obviously your peers in the IT environment, even in business side, are going to accept these changes that you are improving the security, but it has to be a step-by-step process. And creating a security culture is obviously not only something which is done in a security team, right? It has to be a cultural thing in the whole company, and you learn and educate step-by-step your people and users to use those new technologies, in fact, right? So what do we recommend normally in the journey as first steps? You know, we think a lot about defining the objectives. What is the zero trust outcome? It's not a product per se which is going to solve your issues, right? What do you want to achieve? And then performing a gap analysis, what has to be implemented, and what are the stages to be taken to overcome the challenges to get into a zero trust concept, right? And then draft out a roadmap, action plan to zero trust strategy. So that's what we see normally being the next stages and next steps with customers. If you want to see more or hear more in the future, and that slide deck I was said is going to be shared, right? Please sign up for a workshop, for a zero trust workshop with Cisco, if you are interested in, or visit our page or scan the QR code, whatever. It's easy for you. If you want to reach out to us, please use your Teams here. Feel free to reach us. We're sharing also, I think, my email address. Feel free to ask questions. We have dedicated zero trust teams who can help you on the strategy, on the concept, and obviously not only for Cisco, right? But we can show you how we would recommend to do the next stage. Samir, do we have questions now at this stage we want to answer?
Yes, we might have some questions. I will ask one of them to you. The first question is about the zero trust in the current Swiss ecosystem. How do you see the current development implementation of zero trust in Swiss companies from management perspective? Or the management of the companies, C-level of the companies, they understand zero trust, or there is a need for awareness for them?
So in general, I have to admit, we see a lot of them talking about the zero trust and having programs, and there is a different level of companies. I mean, we are talking about small companies, bigger companies, international companies. In general, they have the program running. People are still trying to identify what this means for them. And I've said in the last few slides, right? I think it's not properly done what they want to achieve. I've heard also CISO saying to their program leaders, "Hey, I want to have zero trust," and he's like, "Damn, you know, what shall I report now? What is the roadmap? Against what shall I have now my zero trust concept? You know." Measured, what is my KPI? So I think we are struggling a lot here and there. I see, by the way, I see a lot of consulting companies being here in the lead to actually also show and guide what are the gaps, what are the roadmaps, and then then comes the vendor and the product or whatever it's needed, right? But if you don't have a strategy and a concept, it's going to be very hard to achieve. And I, as a vendor, as a Cisco, obviously I cannot go in and say, look, you are going to follow now my strategy. Because that is going to sound like, yeah, I think you're going to sell me a product. Indeed, I'm going to try to sell you a product, in best case, everything. but it's not what the customer want to see, right? And it's really like completely different. You cannot say Switzerland is in that case a bit better than other countries. I think we are following all, knowing that this concept in general with the principle is to be followed, but now how to get it in, because, you know, there's a lot of legacy in the network. There's a lot of legacy data centers, there's a lot of legacy application, and obviously we all know that's not going to be gone within the next few years. So now we have to create stages and steps to get into the maturity.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Roman. Who is responsible for Zero Trust? CISO office, IT office, management, C-board? How do you see the collaboration from your perspective? I'm sure you are experiencing day-to-day discussions with those companies. Who is really responsible for it, and who should work together?
Is that now a question from you?
From me.
So that's a question from you. I see. Yeah, what shall I say? I mean, that's a very hard question. You know, you would ask me now also who's in the lead in that specific company for IT and strategy. I don't know. I mean, everybody is obviously different, has a different setup. You know, you see some companies, they have, you know, the chief financial officer maybe in the lead of the security, right? But it can be Hans. Do you have an idea?
Yes.
Wait, Hans wants to say he has an idea about that.
Yeah, of course. Every part of the organization or every department could have its part of the responsibility. Or we saw that Zero Trust is not only an architecture, a framework, or an implementation, it's also a strategy. So CISO might set the strategy and opens the way for the architects to create a roadmap towards Zero Trust. And Zero Trust, just to refer to another question, that's not dependent on new technology, new systems or solutions. It's really to adapt or integrate existing solutions or the next phase of replacement into a global framework and an integration towards Zero Trust. So that's the reason why every company is in a different stage of implementing Zero Trust. Zero Trust as a framework also develops over time. It's not at its end. It's not a final version of Zero Trust we see. It's products, solutions, and definitions. They evolve towards this framework where the best security and best efficiency is possible to access resources from anywhere, from any customer, through any device.
Does it mean that Zero Trust should be part of digital transformation, or digital transformation should be part of Zero Trust?
Exactly, both ways. Every project should be part of the Zero Trust architecture and strategy, and every implementation has to think about how to integrate to the neighbor projects, the neighbor solutions, or the other devices to create this view, centralized policy, and easy detection of attacks.
Great. I have another question here for you, gentlemen. How can I use the existing technologies instead of buying new one in my journey of Zero Trust?
That's exactly what I was referring to. So openness, open interfaces, integration with other solutions, that's the key for Zero Trust. So to try as much as possible out of the existing solutions, that means context information. That's one thing, to centralize this information and to be able to distribute it again to the other security devices or log systems. That's one side. The other side is to use enforcement points by applications through integration also to block attackers wherever these enforcement points are. And of course, also to have a centralized policy, centralized identity, which can be used not only on-premise, but also for cloud applications, private cloud, public cloud, and have this integration prepared as well.
Great, thanks a lot. I have another question right now. for our audience, it could be also very interesting. We talk also a lot about security by design. In GDPR, we talk about privacy by design, privacy by default, and in cybersecurity, security by design. How can we differentiate, or shall we differentiate security by design and the zero trust, or is those integrated to each other in case we are going to this direction?
Security by design goes one step further. That means also applications integrate security and security capabilities. Applications could detect vulnerabilities or integrate security intelligence feeds to allow detection of malicious use of these applications by themselves. So that will be that's one part of security by design. But of course, every architecture, every collaboration architecture, collaboration solution, networking, remote access solution, that should include security by design. So that's not a surprise for us. And I think that's what we are doing day by day.
Do you think that AI technologies will challenge zero trust technology providers like Cisco? Do you think that that will be a challenge for you in the future, while seeing the rising of the AI technologies and the advancement of it, and from another perspective, the need to zero trust and the new methods that is developed by AI and all these technologies will challenge it to you as a Cisco, or are you also preparing yourself to advance your system technology service that you will provide or you are providing to the enterprises?
Absolutely, AI will challenge all companies, not only vendors or security vendors. But the good thing is that we have used and have been using artificial intelligence for multiple years already to defend against malicious use, to allow detection of anomaly. So we are one step ahead, and every day when we get challenged, we get a step further and fight back with the same technologies, of course.
Yeah, great. Good. I believe that was all the question not for myself, and we have from our audience. Do you have any final words or any final key takeaways for our audience who is listening right now to us? Anyway, we are recording also the session. We will share the session with our attendees. We will share the presentation, but last key takeaways that you would like to share with our audience before we close the session.
I mean, first of all, thanks for the time, right? Everybody who spent this 45 minutes on the call. I mean, it went up and down from the deep technology understanding. I don't know how far you are. It's same like the audience here, right? Some of us are much deeper into the topic itself when it comes to zero trust as a concept. Some of us are more into technology, how to make it. I think it's that's why I think it's also important to understand that this is a concept and might be needed to have a strategy behind it, and doing the gap analysis and pulling in information from everybody. So I think we at Cisco, we are on this journey already talking for a while. And definitely, if you would like to get in touch with us at Cisco, please use either Samir, your organization, to get through the Cyber Institute, right? To get us in contact. But please also you can also reach out to us, and Imke now just popped in again with the video. She's obviously also going to share those information in the slide decks. Happy to comment on this slide as well once you have time. Just reach out to us.
And don't be afraid of complexity. And perhaps my last word: zero trust is not the end. The goal is to establish trust and to know whom to trust, when, where, and for what actions. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Hans. Thanks a lot, Roman and Imke, for the great presentation. And one more time, I apologize for the technical issues that we had through the Zoom, but I believe we delivered the message that what we want to have, and that we answered the questions. That's the most important one, and we will share further information with our audience, including your email address, Roman. that you might get a direct question to your inbox from our audience. Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice evening or afternoon, and stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.